Yo, what is up? It is your boy Zether back at it again with a brand new video. Now, as you guys can see from the title, this is going to be What If Deku Was Astro Boy featuring That1Weeb. Now, since you guys see That1Weeb, I know you guys are probably like, yo, Zether, what the hell? You're like doing a collab every other freaking day. And to that I say, you're right, but I mean, you guys don't want to see That1Weeb on the channel? Thought so. That being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoy this story since it actually took, a little bit of thinking to do. This one was actually thought out a little bit more than my other series. Most of the things that are on my channel are kind of off the top. They're more like creativity and just on the moment, in the moment thinking in terms of my videos. But this one is going to be a little more thought out in that sense. So, with that being said, if you guys want to find out how this changes the story, stick around and find out. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So, yeah. Okay, so this story is actually all going to start off when Deku was born. Sadly, in this version of events, when Deku was actually born, Inko actually passes due to, child labor. And, the pain was just too much for her, so she ends up actually passing in this version. When she actually ends up dying, Hisashi actually ends up vowing to, raise Deku in the proper way. Teach him everything that, she would have taught him and, make sure that he grows up to be a kind-hearted young kid. As in this version of events, Hisashi is actually going to be a very rich and intelligent man, owning a corporation as... I'm not even going to lie to you guys, I have no clue what corporation, he actually ends up owning. But he's going to own a pretty decent business that is pretty big in Japan, and they're going to be pretty damn rich. So with that being said, that is essentially how we're going to be changing Hisashi's character for this version. So, this version... when Deku grows up, things are actually going to be a little different. Since Inko isn't around, Hisashi is going to be a single father. And owning an entire company is not exactly going to have all the time in the world for his son, but any time that he has, he's definitely going to put it into his son, Deku, or Izuku. Since, it's his only son, and it's all that he has left of Inko to remember her by. So, when Deku's growing up, Hisashi is definitely a little more protective of Deku. At first, Hisashi thinks that, maybe he should just put him into normal school. See what that happens with that, since, maybe Deku doesn't want to go to that private school, since not a lot of kids actually view that as cool. So Hisashi actually tries to just enroll him in normal school, get him to know normal kids instead of the stuck-up ones, as Hisashi thinks that this may be good for him. But along the lines, Deku actually ends up meeting some kid by the name of Katsuki Bakugo, who actually ends up bullying Deku a lot, and Hisashi does not stand for this at all. The second that Deku comes back with a burn mark, Deku actually ends up, going up to Katsuki's parents and telling them that if they don't get their child under control, he's going to sue them for everything that they have, as they are freaked out. And at this point, Bakugo actually stops bullying Deku. Not because, it's like, I guess I have to, but because his mom beat the shit out of Bakugo after this, and Bakugo was not trying to get any more of that action, so Bakugo actually ends up leaving Deku alone. But the other kids still actually end up bullying Deku. So this actually prompts Hisashi to actually take Deku out of the normal school and actually enroll him into that little rich boy school, I guess you could say. So that's essentially what's going to go down in this version of events. He's going to be enrolled in that, little rich boy school. So things are going to be a little different, I guess you could say. So when things change is that, Deku's actually going to be enrolled into the rich boy school, or the more private school, I guess you could say. As in this version, Deku's actually going to grow up being way more intelligent because, simply his father is extremely smart and he doesn't want his son to be a slacker. So he does not accept any bad grades. And when Deku's growing up, he's a genius among geniuses. In terms of school, he aces it. And in terms of money, he's like the richest one out of all the kids. So they don't really make fun of him for any of that, and they can't really talk to him down for anything other than the fact that he's quirkless. So in this version of events, Deku's actually not going to grow up being, ostracized or bullied or picked on like he was in the normal version. This time, he's still going to get kind of bullied, but it's not going to be to the extent of what it was in the original. Because Deku is, he is a Midori, and that name definitely does hold some value in this story. So, with that being said, Deku grows up in a little bit of a different atmosphere. Kids actually kind of respect him a little bit, and he actually grows up having a couple of friends. And granted, a couple of things thinks that he's kind of snot-nosed since, he is extremely intelligent and he doesn't usually take crap from anybody. During the time that he was actually in elementary school, Hisashi actually ends up telling Deku that he should actually enroll him in some martial arts to make him protect himself since, the bullying is still there, but not exactly to the degree that it was before. And since these kids are, a lot less not so stupid, these kids don't exactly take it too far or actually hit Deku. They just kind of call him names. And Hisashi doesn't want his son to actually have to deal with that or be called weak. So he actually ends up enrolling Deku into some martial arts school. And Deku actually ends up learning how to fight a little bit. So for the next couple of years, leading up to his middle school days, Deku actually learned how to fight, being privately tutored by a pretty well-rounded master of, boxing, kung fu, karate, and other stuff like that. So Deku's definitely going to have the hands. He's definitely going to grow up with, he's definitely going to be able to whoop some ass anytime somebody, tries to do something to him. So in this version of events, we're actually going to get a little bit more of a confident and more laid back and just chill Izuku with a hint of Astro Boy personality and that pro hero and that, heroic heart that he has. So Deku's definitely going to kind of change a little bit, but not too much. So with that being said, he's still going to actually end up loving All Might. I forgot to mention that. So with that being said, that's essentially how Deku goes up and grows up during his childhood. On one day, however, after Deku actually ends up doing a test on, the time that, around the time where the sludge villain is around by, Bakugo's school, this time of events, the sludge villain actually ends up getting away and All Might never actually ends up catching him. Since there was no Izuku, there's no reason for the sludge villain to stop, so he just kept running away and actually ends up getting away by his own means. So Deku would actually proceed to not be there, so no sludge villain incident, thank God for Bakugo, since he probably would have died. And yeah, so this is when Deku would proceed to essentially go to his father's lab. He was supposed to go home and do some studying, but instead he actually decided that, he was going to go ahead and sneak in there. So this is when Deku was pretty much doing what Astro Boy is doing in the movie, where he was just sneaking around and just watching everything that his father was doing, as all of the workers would have just been like, oh, hey Midoriya, as Deku would just be like, hey guys, as they'd pretty much just be talking to him, and Deku would just be, in the lab, just watching all the experiments, as Deku would walk into the room where they explained the blue energy and the red energy, the negative and positive, as Deku was just kind of intrigued by it, thinking that, wow, that could actually be used into a very powerful machine, or it could probably power the city for years, as Deku's thinking that that is incredible. But things actually take a turn for the worse when Deku actually ends up going to watch a prototype, a robot, that he's actually watching, and it's actually going quite well. Nothing is actually failing this time, since they're not exactly letting it loose just yet, since at this point, Deku's dad isn't there at the moment, so things aren't exactly going crazy. This is actually when Deku's dad would actually be, with All Might. Since Deku's dad is actually, pretty damn smart, he would have actually had All Might contact him and ask him if maybe he could do some healing on him. And it is at this point that he actually had agreed and done a little bit of experimenting on, All Might, which had actually caused All Might to get helped a little bit. So in this version of events, Deku's actually going to, not Deku, but Hisashi's actually going to help All Might get back to 80% of his full prime instead of his canon self. So now we're actually going to have an All Might that when he actually turns into a Small Might form, it's not going to be that big of a change, and he's kind of going to look like a normal buff young man, just not as much as he is with his buff form. So yeah, that's pretty much how that's going to change a bit. It's definitely going to give away his little transformation. So in this version, he's actually going to have to talk out to the media after this event. So, but we're not exactly too worried about that, are we? Nah, we're not. So this is when Deku would pretty much be in the lab just watching the robot, as Hisashi would walk in and look at his son who's just there. As this is when, All Might would pretty much just be chilling there, just kind of in a different room, just watching stuff as it goes down. As Deku would be there with his father, in the front lines. As this is when one of the doctors would have actually messed up and accidentally ended up turning on the robot. This was not at all supposed to happen, and as soon as it does, it blasts one of the doctors, killing them instantly. This is when the doctors would rush in there and get the card, as they would swipe it, and the protective glass would come in down, locking Deku up there with the robot. This is when Deku would actually run away from it, trying to stay away as long as possible. And it's at this point that All Might is definitely alarmed and informed of this, as All Might would begin to rush in there, but by this time, the robot would have definitely shot at Deku, blowing up a couple pieces of his body, and would have definitely thrown him around and just been toying with him. This when All Might would rush in there at full speed, breaking down the glass, shattering it with one strong blow, and then rushing at the robot and deactivating it, crushing it and destroying the negative energy as the robot would have been taken down. And it is at this point where Deku's body is shown. He has not yet been incinerated, but he's hanging on to life by a thread. This is when Hisashi would rush Deku to the ER, giving him the best doctors that money could buy, as the doctors would pretty much have Deku in a critical condition for hours, as Hisashi would just be wondering what's going on with his son. I mean, is he alive? What's going on? The doctors were performing intensive surgery on Deku, but by the end of it, they tell him that he only has a couple days left to live. Maybe hours, if he's lucky. That kid doesn't have anything left. He's gonna die. As Hisashi would grab the doctor by the collar, as he would say, "What the hell do you mean my son's gonna die? I can't have him die. You go back in there and you fix him." As the doctor would say, "I'm sorry, sir. We tried to do everything. We tried quirks. We tried everything that the medical field has to us, but we just can't fix him." As Hisashi would throw him to the ground and say, "Leave. All of you leave. You guys can't fix my son. I'll have to do it myself." As the doctor would look at Deku, as Deku's father would just be enraged, as he would then proceed to work for the next couple of days on a project, looking at his son, just thinking that he can't let this happen. He can't let his son die. He lost Inko. He's not going to lose his son. This is not going to happen. He's going to do anything and everything in his power. So this is when Hisashi would actually begin to work on a project. Astro Boy, trying to turn his son into a cyborg. He's going to be part human, but most of him is actually going to be cyborg. So this when Hisashi would actually, for the next couple of days, 3 days to be exact, would proceed to work on the layouts for the robot parts and would actually proceed to stabilize Deku. At this point, Deku had lost a couple of his limbs, and Hisashi would decide that he's going to definitely program Deku with, the latest cyborg and just design his own thing for himself. He would try different things until he finally realizes that the only thing that'll probably work would be the positive energy. This is when Hisashi would, give him everything and anything in his power, as the procedure would actually go to plan. Hisashi would have actually been able to decode and finally find a way for for Deku to have his, his thing perfect. All of the operation goes actually perfectly to plan, and when Hisashi goes to turn on Deku, or put the energy in, Deku would open his eyes, as he would then have trouble seeing at first, as he would then look around and have perfect vision, even better than perfect. He'd be looking at 4K vision. Catch your ass in 4K. As Deku would just be looking at his father as he says, "Dad?" As Hisashi would look at his son as he would say, "Izuku, you're okay." As Deku would look at his body, as he would then try to stand up, but he would then wobble. As Hisashi would grab Deku, as he would say, "You remember what happened?" As Deku would say, "Not really." As Hisashi would say, "Well, there was an accident. I fired the guy who was responsible for it, and I sued him for everything that he had, but there was an incident that had a large part of you destroyed, and the only thing I could do to fix you was give you some robotic modifications." As Deku would look towards his father, as he would then see him in a different way, as Deku would then look towards his father and say, "Well," as he then stands up and, begins to, kind of stand straight, as he would then walk towards his dad, taking his first steps, as Hisashi would just remember back to when Deku was taking his real first steps as a toddler. As Hisashi would rush in and hug Deku, as a single tear would go down his face, he would say, "I thought I lost you. I thought you were lost." As Deku would hug his father back and they would embrace for a second, as Deku would smile towards his father and say, "No, you saved me. Thank you." As Hisashi would then smile and he would then tell his son that he actually did a couple of extra things. Not only did he save his life, but he gave him some other modifications that are going to be helping him in the long run. As Deku would say, "What? Really?" As Sasaki would then look at Deku and say, "Yeah, I gave you a couple things that are definitely going to be helping you." As Deku would look towards his father, as he would then say, "Awesome!" As he would then ask his dad what exactly he did. As, Hisashi would proceed to tell him that he gave him a couple of abilities. Flight, he can now shoot energy projectiles, finger lasers, he has strength, durability, speed, reflexes, stamina, agility, endurance, superhuman senses, amazing resilience, he has the butt machine guns, the electric shocks, optical searchlights, image projection, thermal powers, built-in communication devices. I mean, come on now. He has pretty much all of the capabilities that Astro Boy has in the movie. So everything that you could see in that movie is everything that Deku would pretty much have. So after Sasaki would explain this to Deku, he would ask Deku if he still wants to go to UA. As Deku would look towards his father and say, "I do, but will I even have enough time to get these abilities in check?" As Sasaki would tell him that he also has one more thing. Since he has that computer in his brain, he actually has some superhuman understanding. So now he's going to be even smarter than he. And he's also going to have, an upper hand in terms of learning these abilities. So for the next 10 months, Deku and Hisashi are definitely going to be doing a lot of bonding, as well as training together. And during this time, Hisashi would have actually gotten a little bit of a anger towards All Might, thinking that, All Might was the #1 hero. He should have been able to save him. I mean, what the hell? He should have busted in there. If he would have ran in there just a second sooner, his son would be even better than he is now. Thinking that, he's kind of angry at All Might, but at the same time, he understands. Deku would have been told about the situation, and although Deku was a little sad that All Might couldn't save him sooner, he would actually understand and be more grateful towards All Might, thinking that he saved them after all, and if it wasn't for him, he would have died. As Sasaki would think that that's true. So for the next 10 months, Deku would proceed to perfect these abilities that he has and actually get them perfectly down, since at this point he can actually use his flight, his energy blast, his super speed, and his combat capabilities to definitely put in some work and damage. Deku is not exactly going to be that pacifist where he doesn't want to destroy people or, hurt other robots like the normal Astro Boy has. So things are actually going to be a little different. And now, this is when we're actually going to be skipping over to the 10 months. During the 10 months, Sasaki would have actually built a certain facility for Deku to train in. Something where Deku would have, been able to train his powers now, and actually would have built a couple of robots for Deku to test his abilities on. During this time, Deku would actually get adapt to fighting against robots, and he would definitely have his combat capabilities go through the roof, as well as his normal capabilities. They'd be amazing, and he would actually realize that he actually has one more ability. The ability to give his energy off to other robots, increasing their ability, but Deku decides not to use it since it'll probably, make his lifespan a little shorter. So Deku can't actually afford to be doing that stuff. So things change a little bit. So we're going to actually go ahead and cut on into when Deku was actually going to be going to the entrance exams. This time, things would actually go a little different. This time, when Deku's walking off, he would actually not exactly be having Bakugo there, who's, kind of intimidating Deku. So when Deku's walking inside, he would just have nothing but sheer confidence emanating from his body as Deku would be walking. And this is when Deku would proceed to, bump into Uraraka, as he would then look towards her direction. And this is when Deku would proceed to be like, "Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to bump into you." As Uraraka would actually turn around and be like, "Oh, it's okay. Isn't it nerve-wracking how this test is going to determine the rest of our lives?" As that talk would essentially pretty much go to canon, except this time it wouldn't be because Deku, tripped. It'd be more because, Deku bumped into her. So they'd actually walk inside into the... excuse me. This is when they would actually... This is when they would actually proceed to just walk inside, as Deku and Uraraka would actually just be talking as they actually end up sitting next to each other. And this is when Deku would actually proceed to be like, "What's your name?" As she would say, yeah, sorry, my name is Uraraka. She says, "What's yours?" As Deku would be about to say, "Oh, my name is As President Mike would say, "All right, kids, let's get this test started." As this is when Deku would actually be cut off short, as they would actually go off to find their own seats, and this is when Deku would proceed to ace the test. He would literally get a 100%. And that would be that. Deku would not have any problems at all, or would have even had to study for that. He's way beyond the high school level. If anything, he's at university times 50 level. So Deku does not have to study for anything. He is pretty damn intelligent, and he's even smarter than his father. So it's over, bro. Any of Nezu's tests, not gonna do nothing. So this is when we're actually gonna go ahead and cut on over to when Deku's actually gonna be outside. He would actually be one of the first people to wait, and when he's outside, he would actually decide that, you know what, he's gonna pop in some earbuds. As Deku would actually pop in some AirPods. You know, he's rich like that, so not earbuds or headphones. He pops in some AirPods. As Deku would actually be just repping a straight up Adidas tracksuit. Something comfortable. Something really reliable. As Deku would just have some comfortable Adidas shoes. As this is when everything would pretty much start. And you guys are probably wondering, does Deku have that weird haircut that Astro Boy has where it doesn't need to be combed? No, his head is there. So he has normal human hair. And yeah, that's pretty much how that is. So this is when Prison Mike would actually proceed to, be like, "Alrighty, kids. We're just gonna wait for like five more minutes, and then we're gonna go ahead and get started for everybody to get out and finish with their tests." So this is when Deku would pretty much just be sitting there, as he would actually notice that girl's there. As he would say, "Oh, I should go talk to her." As he takes out one AirPod and proceeds to go walk over to Uraraka. This is when Ida would actually proceed to get in the way and say, "I'm sorry, I cannot allow you to do that." As he would say, "I can't allow you to distract her and get her unnerved for the test." As Deku would look at Ida and say, I wasn't going to distract her, but I guess I could see what you mean by that." As he would say, "What's your name?" As Ida would say, "Oh, what? My name is Tenya Ida." As Deku would say, "Huh, that's a pretty interesting name. Are you from the Ida family?" As he would say, like, "Are you related to Ingenium somehow?" As Ida would say, "Oh, yes, that is my brother." As Deku would say, "That's dope, man. So you're super fast, right?" As Ida would say, "Yeah." As Deku would say, "Huh, how about we race in this thing? Let's see who can bust in through the gate faster or destroy their first robot." As Ida would look towards Deku and have a little bit of a smile, saying, "You know what, I kind of like you." As Deku would look at him, and this is when President Mike would actually be like, "There's no countdown in a real battle. Go, go, go!" As Deku would pretty much blitz off and fly at top speed, as he would fly over the gate and would proceed to burst his first robot before even Ida could react. This is when Deku would proceed to burst up in there and just proceed to just wail on robots, shooting energy blasts, running in there and destroying them with single punches, flying straight through them, shooting eye blasts at them. Yeah, I'm adding that. Come on now. You guys know I had to give that to him. So this is when Deku would proceed to do pretty damn well during the exam. Deku would go in there and pretty much proceed to mollywop the robots, getting as many points as possible. And since Ida actually has a little bit more determination, he actually ends up getting about 10 more points than he does in the original. Since Bakugo doesn't have Deku there to, kind of make him be like, to practice his explosion quirk on, Bakugo's a little weak. Practice his explosion quirk on. No, I'm serious. All seriousness though, Bakugo doesn't have Deku there, so he doesn't have any reason to be like, "Oh, quirkless loser." And so Bakugo's actually going to be pretty much the same. And he's going to have way more of a cocky attitude since Deku's never there to, kind of make Bakugo be like, whatever. So, nobody ever actually ended up doing anything to Bakugo. So Bakugo pretty much grew up even more arrogant than ever. So is Deku going to whoop Bakugo's ass? Yes. Is Deku going to enjoy whooping Bakugo's ass? Yes. Am I going to do Bakugo dirty in this what if? Yes. All of those questions will be answered on the next part of Dragon Ball Z. Just kidding, guys. But in all seriousness, Deku would proceed to pretty much mollywop robots, as he would essentially proceed to get 267 robot points. And it's at this point when Deku was actually just bumping into some music while he destroys robot after robot, just coming in, sweet kicking them, elbowing them. Yeah, he went crazy during that, and shooting energy blasts at them in all directions. Deku would have gone in there and pretty much mollywopped a lot of robots. And this is when the 0-pointer would pretty much be let out. Things would kind of go to canon with Uraraka getting stuck, Ida running away and seeing Deku go, except This time, when Ida actually sees Deku running back there, he would think that, why is he going over there? He would then think, could he be, as he would just stop in his tracks as he looks back and tries to look at what Deku's about to do. As Deku would then rush towards Uraraka, as he would then grab her and remove the rubble off of her, he would then say, can you walk? And she would say, no, I think I hurt my leg. As Deku would say, okay, I got you. As he would then grab her and fly her off, as Deku would then fly back towards the robot, which Ida was actually in front of now. As Deku would say, Ida! As he would then proceed to use a little bit more of his, energy to blast stuff up over there. As Deku would proceed to do a sort of spinning kick towards the robot, as he would kick the robot's head clean off. As the robot would then fall backwards, as the robot would then be taken out. This is when all of the spectators would then be like, what the hell? This kid is insane. As, Deku would proceed to be like, that was not as hard as I thought it would be. As Ida would then be like, dude, you're incredible. And you guys may be wondering, what the hell? How was he able to take down the 0-pointer? The Astro Boy in the movies was barely even able to take that one down. And to that I say, this version is actually going to be 2 times stronger. Because number one, he's part human, so he's not all robotic. And that kind of helps him a little bit, I guess you could say. Since he's kind of like Genos, I guess you could say. In terms of where he can actually get improvements and get stronger. And during the 10 months, he was actually able to be improved every now and then by his father. So that's why he's actually going to be 2 times stronger. So, yeah, Deku proceeded to kick off the robot's head. And this is when he would rush towards Ida as he lands down pretty smoothly as he says, you okay? As Ida would say, yeah, how the hell did you do that? As Deku would say, oh, it's my quirk, I guess you'd say. As he says, my quirk is called, as he would just think of a quick name and say, my quirk is called, Astro. As Ida would say, Astro, what is, as Deku would say, it's pretty much just like, it gives me a lot of abilities. As Ida would say, oh, is that why you can fly and have super speed? And super strength? As Deku would say, oh, yeah, pretty much. As they'd proceed to actually walk off, and this is when Ida would pretty much thank Deku for saving him, so he would then walk off on his own. This is when Deku would get in a call with his father, telling him that he actually thinks he did pretty well. So, this is when Deku would proceed to walk on off, as he's basically texting on his phone, not really paying attention to what he's doing, as he would then actually end up bumping into Mei Hatsume. This is when Deku would actually be like, oh, sorry about that. And she would say, huh? What? As she would then turn towards Deku and say, oh, yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about it. As Deku would say, yeah, sorry about that. And she would say, what's your name? As Deku would say, oh, my name is, Izuku Midoriya. As she would say, like Hisashi Midoriya? Like the founder of Midoriya Tech? As Deku would say, yeah, that's my father. And she would say, oh my god, that's incredible. I've always wanted to work there. As she would say that's pretty much my dream place. I've always wanted to be a scientist there. It's pretty much the top that you can go to. As Deku would chuckle and say, yeah, I guess. And she would say, what's it like? As Deku and her would pretty much proceed to talk a little bit. And she would say, wow, that's pretty incredible. As Deku would say, well, if you want to talk more about it, we can definitely go get a bite to eat. I'm actually kind of hungry. As she would say, oh, yeah, definitely. As they would actually go out and get a bite to eat. Get something simple. Just go get some, some pizza. As they'd go out and Deku would say, my treat. She would say, oh, okay. As they'd pretty much begin to talk, and Mei Hatsume would introduce herself and reveal her weird nature with, being an inventor and showing Deku that she actually has a little bit of potential. She has weird ideas and things that not a lot of people would actually think of doing. And that makes her special. That makes her different from everybody else. So Deku would actually take notice of that very quickly. So, yeah, this is when Deku would proceed to essentially tell Mei that maybe she could actually work there with his father, and he might actually be able to put in a good word after she's done with UA. And she would say, really? That would be my dream. As Deku would say, yeah, of course. You seem like a really smart and inventive girl. As Mei Hatsume would just have a bright smile in her face. As he would ask her, what's your quirk, by the way? As she would say, oh, I have pretty good eyes. As he says, oh, that's pretty cool. She would just say, yeah, that's why my eyes are a little weird. As Deku would say, oh, I actually kind of like your eyes. She would actually kind of, turn a little red, but not too much. As Deku would say, well, It's been really nice talking to you. As she would say, yeah, definitely. We should do this again sometime. As Deku would say, huh, I'd definitely be down. As Mei would just chuckle, and she would actually give Deku her number. This is when Deku and Mei would pretty much go off their separate ways, and they'd pretty much be gonna, talk to each other and text each other, throughout the next couple of days. This is when Deku would pretty much go home and chill, telling his father that he should have passed. I mean, if he doesn't, then, the qualifications to being a hero are insane if he doesn't. He's pretty sure he's destroyed at least 100 robots, 100-something robots, as his father would say, "That's my boy." As Deku would just smile and say, yeah, the letter should be getting here in about a couple of days, so would you be willing to have me go over to the company and watch it with you? As he would say, oh, I was actually going to say that I would stay home and celebrate with you that day. As he would say, huh, that sounds kind of nice. As the day would arrive, and Hisashi would actually open the letter with his son, Deku. As they'd actually open the letter and have a pretty close bond at this point. They're like really, really good relationship. So when Deku's actually told by All Might, Sashi's a little angry, but when All Might proceeds to tell Deku that he broke his record, Sashi would get a smile on his face, as he would then tell him that he got the best score in all UA history. As Deku would smile and think that, yeah, Sashi would say, that's my boy. As Deku would then be told about the rescue points, as Deku would have shattered All Might's record. As Deku would actually be kind of happy. As Sashi and Deku would actually be pretty damn happy. As Sashi would say, you know what, why don't we go out to celebrate? As Deku would say, yeah, let's do it. As they'd go out to bowling, they'd go out to eat, and then by the end of it, Deku would actually ask his dad if he'd be down to do something a little risky, I guess daredevilish, if you will. As Sashi would say, what is it? As Deku would say, let's go skydiving. As Sashi would say, what the heck? Sure. As Deku would then get 2 parachutes ready, as he would then grab his dad and fly off into the sky. As Sashi would say, wait, are we not going to use a plane? As Deku would say, nope. As Sashi would say, whoa! As they would blast off. As they'd be in the sky, this is when Deku would drop Hisashi and turn off his propulsors. As Deku would just drop and proceed to just fly down with his father. This is when the parachute of Hisashi would actually malfunction, as it would actually not work. But this is when Deku would just activate his boosters, as he would grab Hisashi and make him land perfectly. This is when Hisashi would be scared for his life, saying that he's never doing that again. As he would say that if it wasn't for his son, he probably would have died. As Deku would have said that, nah, he probably would have caught him and saved him himself regardless. As Hisashi would just chuckle and say, yeah, whatever. As Deku would just proceed to laugh at his dad. Now, this is when we're going to go ahead and skip on over to the first day of UA. Hisashi would actually have a big breakfast ready for Deku, as Deku and Hisashi would have a pretty good talk, talking about everything and about how far Deku has come since, everything had happened. As Hisashi and Deku would just smile and talk about things, rethink about the past. As Hisashi and Deku would just have a pretty damn good conversation. But this is when Deku would look at his watch and say that, oh wow, he actually has to get going. As he would decide that if he doesn't fly off, he's going to be late. And Hisashi would tell him to take the car. As Deku would say, can't do it, I'm going to be late. As he would fly off, and Hisashi would say, that boy, I swear. This is when Deku would pretty much arrive at UA and seeing the giant door. As Deku would pretty much walk inside, and this is when Deku would pretty much look inside and see Bakugo and Ida arguing. This is when Deku would see Ida and say, oh, it's that kid. As he would then look towards Bakugo and have a little bit of a familiarity towards him. He'd be like, Bakugo? He would say Kachan, as Bakugo would look around and say, who the hell? As he would then look towards Deku and say, Deku? As Deku would look towards Bakugo and he would say, oh, what the heck? I haven't seen you in so long. What's it been, like 10 years? As Bakugo would look towards him and say, what the hell? They let a quirkless bastard like you in? As Ida would say, quirkless? He's not quirkless. He's even stronger than you, in fact. As Bakugo would say, what the hell did you say, Four Eyes? As Deku would say, nah, just leave him alone. He's always been like that. As he would then proceed to talk to Ida. But this is when Araka would bust in through the door saying, hey, you're the kid with the... she would say, as Deku would turn around and say, oh, hey, Araka. She would say, you never did tell me your name. What is it, by the way? As Deku would say, oh, right, sorry. As he would say, yeah, my name is, Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya. As she would say, Midoriya, like the family, the rich guys? As he would say, yep, that's the one. As she would pretty much be like, what's it like to be loaded? As he would say, it's pretty cool. As this is when they would proceed to talk, and this is when Aizawa would pretty much wake up and do his usual shtick, doing his little, if you're here to make friends, I suggest you leave, yada yada yada. This is when he would tell them all to put these on and meet him outside. They're going to do the quirk test. As Uraraka would say, what? What about the orientation? As Aizawa would do his normal explaining. And this is when Deku would pretty much go to the room, as Deku's body would kind of be weird. It would look strong and not at the same time. He wouldn't be ripped, but he would actually be in shape. It's weird. Sashi would have actually designed him with a sort of design that made him look kind of ripped, because, I mean, he's not going to be able to develop any muscles, so it's going to be a little hard for him. So that's essentially how that goes on. And Deku would actually take his stuff off, as the rest of the people look at him and they say, whoa, dude, pretty damn strong. As Deku would say, yeah, I mean, I did train before. As he would say, before? What do you mean, before? As Deku would say, nothing. You'll find out. As they would pretty much go outside, and this is when Aizawa would throw the ball at Deku. As he would say, here, throw the ball. You did get the max score, and you did get the highest scores. Bakugo would hear that and be like, what? That quirkless bastard got the highest score? How the hell? He's quirkless. As Aizawa would say, no, he's not. He has a quirk. As Bakugo would look attentively as Deku, as he would say, maybe he got a quirk later on. As he would say, that's weird, though. He might have been a late bloomer. As Deku would then look at the ball and say, so, the rules teach? As Aizawa would then say, throw the ball as far as you can within that circle. As Deku would say, oh, okay, so that's it? I just gotta be in the circle? As Aizawa would say, that's pretty much it. As Deku would proceed to say, sounds easy enough. As Deku would then grab his arm back, as he would then throw the ball with all of the strength that he has. As Deku would actually proceed to get 2,976 meters, surprising the entirety of the class, make them all drop their jaws, especially Bakugo. And after this, Bakugo would rush at Deku saying, how the hell did you get a quirk? As Aizawa would apprehend him and tell him that if he does that again, he'll expel him on sight. As Bakugo would have to calm down, and Deku would just not even be scared of him. He would just be like, I don't really need to bother with him. As Deku would pretty much look towards Bakugo as, things are, kind of cool. And this is when Aizawa would actually proceed to do the rest of the test. In terms of the long jump, Deku would just fly over it. In terms of the grip strength, Deku would break the thing. And in terms of the physical portion inside of side steps, Deku would use his jet propulsors to pretty much blast off and on, even faster than Magnetic could. So Deku would definitely get pro hero stats, getting first place with the rest of the order. Essentially going to canon, with Ida realizing that Deku was actually faster than him. And that actually hits him a little in where it hurts. But since Deku's not a dickhead, and he's actually kind of nice, he would actually not really be too bothered by it. So that's essentially how that happens. And after school, after all that's said and done, Bakugo would walk up to Deku and ask him how the hell he got a quirk. As Deku would lie and say that, oh, he's just a late bloomer. And so Bakugo would just listen to that and be like, whatever. As this is when Deku, Uraraka, and Ida would pretty much just all take the train home. As Deku could have actually taken a limo, but he actually told his dad that it's cool. He'll just take the train with his friends. As he would say, got friends this soon? As Deku would say, yeah. As he would then text Mei Hatsume about what happened, and she would actually be like, oh, that's pretty interesting. As Deku would say, yeah, pretty cool. Turns out the girl that I saved is actually here. As Mei would actually get a little jealous by that, but she, just not really say anything. So this is when we're going to go ahead and skip on over to the very next day. They'd have some pretty normal day in terms of classes, and we're going to go ahead and skip on over to when All Might busts in through the door saying that he is here, telling them about their quirks, asking their quirks, telling them to put on their hero suit since the suit makes the hero. And as soon as they all walk out, Deku's actually repping a little bit of a different suit. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I don't know any Astro Boy suit that would actually make him look dope. I haven't really thought about that. So if you guys can think of a pretty dope design in terms of, there's his hero suit, I'd actually definitely appreciate it if you guys can comment that down below. I'll end up telling you guys what his hero suit is on the next part, since I'm not going to lie to you guys, I have no idea what to do. But for now, let's just say that, his hero suit is cool. And, when he walks out, Uraraka and Ida would notice and tell him that he looks pretty damn badass. As Deku would chuckle and say, yeah. Actually, no. Deku's hero suit is going to look a little bit like Shinso's suit, where it's a little bit techy, and it has a lot of things on it. As Deku, in truth be told, he doesn't even need his hero suit, but he decides that, fuck it. He's going to do it just because he wants to kind of look cool, and If it can make him look cool, then screw it, he might as well. So that's essentially what Deku does, and his suit is pretty damn awesome. So yeah, this is when the matches are pretty much decided, and this is actually kind of like canon. Deku gets put with Uraraka against Ida and Bakugo, and this time Ida actually doesn't have a reason to doubt Deku, and he actually thinks that he's pretty damn strong. So he's actually on high alert. And in terms of Uraraka, he knows what her quirk is, so he does what he did in canon. In terms of that, Bakugo would tell him that he better leave that quirk, that freaking bastard to him, as he would just stay here to guard the bomb. As Ida would just say, "You can't speak to her." As Bakugo would, look at him and call him a four-eyed and tell him to leave him alone. As Bakugo would walk off and go over to try to find Deku, screaming, "Deku!" As Deku would look towards Uraraka and try to hide around the corners, he would say that as soon as he's done with this battle and captures him, they're going to rush at Ida, since it's going to be better for them to both do it together. As she would say, "Right." As Deku would then look at Bakugo, as Bakugo would rush at him, and Deku would say, dodge the blow very quickly, as he would grab his arm and hold it in a position where he can snap it like a twig at any moment. This is when Bakugo would say, "What the hell? Let go of me, bastard!" As Deku would say, "No, I don't think I will." As Deku would grab Bakugo's arm, twist it, and flip him over him. As Bakugo's arm would then get fractured. As Bakugo would hold it tightly, as he would say, "Ugh, damn it." This is when Bakugo would grab his arm and pop it back into place. As Deku would have actually popped it out of its socket. As Bakugo would say, "Ah, shit hurt, you're gonna pay." So he would then rush towards Deku, and they would get into a pretty badass fight. Except Deku has the upper hand. He has combat training, and he's actually way more powerful than Bakugo. So this is when things change a little bit. This is when Bakugo would get a little tired, and after the sweat accumulates, he would then jump away from Deku, as he would then say, "You remember how my quirk works, right? I sweat nitroglycerin, and you're about to find out its full extent." As he would then pull the pin, and the explosion would go towards Deku, destroying his hero suit, but Deku would be intact. Of course, he'd have a little bit of, explosion, explosion debris on him, as Deku would just be coughing, be like, as Bakugo would look towards Deku and see that he's fine. His eyes would then be wide open, as he would then say, "How the hell?" As Deku would then rush towards Bakugo and, pretty much curb stomp him. Or no, there's no curb, so he can't do that. So this is when Bakugo would grab... This is when Deku would grab Bakugo's face and smack it into the wall, as Bakugo would ricochet off and get knocked out, as he would then hold him in the tape. This is when he would then look towards Uraraka and say, "Okay, we gotta head up there and face Ida." And she would say, "Right, I'm ready." As they would rush over to Ida, and do I even gotta say it? Ida gets mollywopped. There is no such thing as Ida actually standing up for himself, or, even putting up remotely some sort of fight against against Deku and Uraraka. She actually ends up making him float, and once he's in the air, he has no control over anything, and this is when Uraraka would rush and touch the bomb. So that's essentially how the heroes versus villains goes. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Weeb, and he's going to go ahead and go over the USJ, as well as the sports festival. So I'll be returning in a little bit of time. I'll see you guys in part 2, and with that being said, it has been your boy Zether. You guys are going to go over to That1Weeb, and I am out.
Hey, thanks Zether for passing the mic over, and now everybody, we're going to be heading into the USJ arc, as well as the Sports Festival arc for What If Deku was Astro Boy. So as you guys have just learned, Deku now has the abilities that are even above Bakugo's explosion ability, and is able to tank attacks of that level, so we'll see how Deku's new abilities are actually affected against the Nomu in the League of Villains, starting now. Bakugo's body is slumped over on the ground, as we see Deku standing there triumphantly, with the hero team of Izuku Midoriya, along with Ochako Uraraka, actually winning. One small change that occurs in this version of the timeline is that Deku is actually the MVP of the entire battle, with Deku not having destroyed the building as brutally as he had when he had been using One For All back in the original timeline, and only having beaten Bakugo without damaging surrounding areas. Deku would have actually fulfilled the hero part of the hero test successfully. Ida would have been close, but Deku, having been able to distract Bakugo for longer and able to put up such a confident fight without destroying himself, was already better at that level. Bakugo, on the other hand, after he wakes up, would feel a sense of danger, almost as if though he'd been surpassed by something he had never seen coming, an invisible force that had moved before him and passed faster than him than he had even noticed. What happened to Deku, he'd be thinking, as he wonders what had happened to that kid he used to bully so long ago. That rich kid. Deku, on the other hand, was ecstatic that he actually beat Kacchan in a fight, and his powers that his dad had given him are actually useful and can beat quirks. That means that even without a quirk, I can still become a hero. All Might would be especially proud of Izuku, having remembered the failure that Izuku had of his body as he was about to die in a mere hours, days, after that negative energy attack the robot had almost killed him. Now look at him, All Might would be thinking. Bakugo would have no idea whatever this quirk Astro was. We see Bakugo interrogating Ida after the fight, asking what he meant about this quirk that Deku had. There's no way, he'd be thinking. The Deku I knew, he'd remember himself bullying the shit out of little Deku, would never have been able to take a hit like that. He took one of my strongest palm attacks to the face, like it was nothing, Bakugo would say, with him now sounding even more pissed off when he says it. I'm going to find out the truth about that quirkless bastard. There's no way that he has so many abilities. It's as if though he has multiple quirks, but that's impossible. Needless to say, the heroes versus villains battle would have put a strain on Bakugo and Deku's relationship, causing there to be some tension between them. Around a week has now passed since the heroes versus villains test, and it was now time for the USJ arc, or I should say the USJ field trip. As the heroes of Class 1A, the students themselves, would go with Aizawa, and All Might himself would actually be able to come with this time, as unlike the original, where he had been weakened, due to Hayashi's actual assistance, his body was around 80% of his prime, meaning that when All Might had fought those villains earlier in the day, All Might wouldn't actually have been turned down to his debuffed form. And even if he was still strong enough and physically able enough to go anyway. So in this version, All Might would actually come with to the USJ the first time, which is a big change in my opinion from the original. But it makes sense since he's much stronger and One for All isn't as weakened within him, due to Hayashi's medical and technical interference. Anyhow, the whole class would be excited to go as they finally get on the bus and drive over, with Aizawa sighing as he closes his hoodie even tighter and falls back asleep for the few precious moments he can. Eventually, the whole class would arrive with Deku actually knowing a bit about the USJ, going to his systems and reading up about it a little bit before the actual trip. We'll be doing different rescue organizations and team exercises, he'd be thinking. He'd be wondering what it'd be if who he'd be actually working with as he looks around seeing Ida, Uraraka, and Bakugo. Deku is pretty intelligent in this timeline, like a super genius around a university level, as Ether had mentioned beforehand, so he's not too worried about anything happening, and he thinks he can handle this pretty easily, especially with his abilities of Astro. Anyway, as Deku would get off the bus along with everyone else and head into the USJ itself, this is where we would meet 13, the rescue hero. As Uraraka would be nerding out talking about how excited she was to meet her, with her being Uraraka's actual favorite hero, Deku would know a little bit about her, with the suit that she has designed for her body and her quirk having some parts from it created especially from Midoriya tech. Since Izuku's father is especially gifted with robotics and especially creating suits and other things that could withstand the strength of space and of the vacuum within it. This is from his days before he created Deku's artificial body, and before he was working on the positive and negative energies. Just as 13 would finish explaining the 4 sections of the USJ and the different procedures they'd be practicing there in hero rescue training, this would be when it suddenly begins to grow dark. Deku's sensors would begin to scan something, as there's a singularity beginning to form at the bottom of the USJ. Something's coming, Deku would say for all of his classmates to hear, as everyone tenses up. All Might would now get prepared for the fight, as him, Aizawa, and 13 would be ready for anything. This would be when the League of Villains would begin to appear out of the portal, as they are there, and they're there to kill All Might. Suddenly, a man with many hands covering his black cloak would walk through a dark portal, as we can see Kurogiri Shigaraki, and suddenly a dark black figure, Nomu, what we would come to know as Nomu, would step through, as suddenly all these other villains begin to pour out of the portal, as they would announce themselves as being the League of Villains. The plan would go into action just like the original, Kurogiri moving all the students away from All Might and splitting up the 3 heroes, then capturing All Might and using his portals in order to kill All Might, with the Nomu grappled onto him from the other end. Go. Suddenly the villains would begin rushing up the stairs, as Kurogiri would begin to surround the students in portals. Deku, who would have sensed this already using his superior ability for all of his superhuman traits, would easily be able to fly out and escape with a portal, flying into the air before anyone can get captured. Before realizing it though, he'd realize the rest of the students aren't as fast as him, as he charges back in to try and save them. Just as he's about to reach them to try and grab their hands and pull them out, the portal would close as all of his fellow students and teachers would disappear. The villains climbing up the stairs would now intercede as Deku stands there ready to fight them. Deku would suddenly take one of his left pointer fingers as he points directly towards one of the villains, holding up his thumb as he then moves into the air. Bam! Suddenly a laser would shoot out faster than light speed as it blasts out of Deku's finger, this energy cutting right through the villain, and Deku hitting this laser in all 4 of his arms, legs, and doing this for over and over again with the lasers hitting multiple villains. This is too easy, Deku be thinking. Deku be thinking, this villain organization, it has to be a fake name. There's no way they just say what their name for their organization was out in the open like this. And to 3 heroes in front of them? Why would they even attack if All Might's here? There's no way they could beat All Might, right? Deku would be confused as he's using all his brain power while fighting the villains, focusing as he uses his super strength and his flight and speed to easily outmatch these villains, with them using their quirks but failing miserably. As for the rest of the students, Deku would then go up after defeating all the villains on the stairs and fly overhead, watching to see if anyone needed help. He would see Mineta and Tsuyu on the boat as he decides to give them an assist, watching as he sees the water below. Deku would use his butt Gatling gun as suddenly bullets would rain from overhead down to the villains in the water below. We would see blood in the water as literal sharks would be passing out. I'm not even joking. But then Tsuyu would take advantage of this as she jumps into the air, calling, "Midoriya!" Zuko would call for his aid as he then flies down as fast as he can, as Tsuyu would catch onto him with her tongue, catching Mineta along with him on her leg, with Mineta rubbing his face against her leg and Tsuyu being grossed out, telling him that he should stop doing that in such a tense situation. Mineta would then say that he can't help it. But anyway, Deku, who would have saved Tsuyu and Mineta from that situation, would then land near the middle area where we would see something ferocious. The Nomu and All Might are actually fighting, with the Nomu being assisted by Kurogiri's portals. I have to get in there, he'd be thinking. There's no way All Might can counter this guy. And it looks like he's being pushed back, with All Might being constrained and his vision being removed from those portals, and that monster being able to use portals to throw his fists and punches through. All Might has no idea where the attacks are coming from. But All Might would then see Deku as he tells him to get away from there. Deku would be shocked, realizing that he's not moving, as he flies off, taking Tsuyu and Minato with him, saying he's going to go back for All Might, but he needs to make sure they're safe first. He would drop the 2 off at the stairs in the front by the door, and tell them to get out and go and warn the rest of UA about the villain attack. With Tsuyu and Mineta being sent out, with Deku using his super strength to just rip open the closed doors, Tsuyu, who's not as fast as Ida, would have a much slower time, as the 2 would be running on foot, with Mineta actually using his purple grape ability to jump off of his hair follicles that he uses to create those big purple balls that he uses. Anyway, Mineta and Tsuyu would be jumping along as they're trying to get back to UA as fast as possible. Izuku would get back into the fray as he sees that the rest of the students don't need his help. All Might, on the other hand, definitely will. But All Might's actually not doing bad anymore, as All Might's powering up and is ready to go beyond plus ultra. Suddenly we see Shigaraki as his hand's about to touch All Might. "You get away from him," Deku would be thinking as he jumps in, kicking Shigaraki in the arm. Unfortunately for Deku, his left leg would get touched by Shigaraki's hand, as decay would begin to affect him. "The moment I touch your flesh, you're dead," he would be thinking, as Shigaraki laughs. Deku would actually look down as he then hits his leg. Nothing happened. Wait, what? Shigaraki would be thinking. Deku would laugh, saying that you probably can do that with living things, but not him. He blasts forward as he uses his super speed, and would punch Shigaraki as hard as he can in the gut, shattering some of his ribs. Shigaraki would croak as he can't feel anything, his air being pushed out of his lungs as a vacuum is beginning to form. Deku would continue to punch around Shigaraki, and this would be the distraction that Kurogiri needs for All Might to go beyond. "I'm gonna take this Nomu down," All Might would be thinking, as he uses his 80% that he can access of his full prime power, and would finally be able to push the Nomu back. 1 punch, 2 punch, 3 punch, 4 punch, 5 punch, 500 mighty blows. As All Might would begin throwing punches faster and faster, hitting the Nomu at top speed. Deku would be watching in awe as we see Eraserhead now coming around the corner, just in time as he deactivates Kurogiri's quirk, as he was just about to capture All Might inside of his portal. "I'm going to take this guy down," All Might would be thinking, as Nomu is getting punched over and over again, his shock absorption as well as his regeneration being cancelled by Aizawa. Another thing is that Aizawa would still have Dry Eye, but he wouldn't have been crushed into the ground by Nomu in this timeline, with Aizawa having been sent away so that they could fight All Might alone. As All Might throws more and more punches, it would finally come to the last one. "Now, Watch as I show you these words that you've heard so many times before, and show you what they truly mean. To go beyond. Plus, ultra. As All Might would throw one final punch, almost like a collateral star, collapsing into this Nomu, shattering it. It goes flying through the ceiling and into the sky. A blink of a flash, it's almost like a newborn star collapsing in the sky. With the entire USJ opening up, and Nomu having been defeated, Kurogiri would retreat as he tries to grab Shigaraki and run. "We'll be back," Shigaraki would say, as he looks at Deku and All Might, saying that they'll be back to kill them. Shigaraki would disappear into the dark portal, as the USJ arc would come to an end. With Tsuyu and Mineta bringing in the police force, and the heroes having locked down UA, the rest of the villains would be captured shortly, with no injuries from the students' side. And everyone would be interrogated by the police to see what any information they would have on the villains, with the villains now being captured in and taken in by the police force. Deku would see if All Might was okay, as All Might would begin to revert back to his base form without his buffed up version, breathing heavily. This would be when Cementos and the pro heroes would cover All Might and keep him away from the rest of the students, as Deku as well as the rest of the students would be then herded out of the building and then taken to the paramedics to see if anyone was hurt, which luckily had no casualties. Deku would just get repaired by his father when he gets back, with him having a bit of actual rust caused from Shigaraki's decay quirk. With Deku getting a new replacement leg joint, which had been touched by Shigaraki's hand, he would also get a few upgrades for the upcoming festival. Festival? Deku would ask his dad, when Hiyashi would then ask, "Wait, you don't know?" Deku would be confused as he hasn't even heard about the festival before, with him being a bit more sheltered in this timeline, as he would then research UA festivals, where he would then come up with the Culture Festival and the UA Sports Festival. It's gotta be the Sports Festival, but they would hold that now? Dad, are you sure they're gonna have that after that brutal villain attack on one of their facilities? I don't see why they wouldn't have it, Hiyashi would then say, explaining to Deku as Deku would think about his father's words. He would explain to Deku that if the heroes were to back down now, they would show a sign of weakness in the hero society, and the villains would take advantage of that. By holding the festival, it shows that they're not afraid of any threats, and they won't bow down and ruin their current schedule just because some villains invaded. Oh, by the way, what are these new upgrades you're giving me? Alright, here in your left leg, I've added a propulsion jet system that has 3D maneuver, so that means basically that when you're flying through the air, instead of having to angle your whole body to use your jet propulsion now, you can simply use your left leg, where you were attacked by that villain, and just puff out your own jet of air, which will cause you to be able to move in the air more efficiently. Alright, Deku would say. That sounds pretty interesting. And also, what's here in my arm? I can feel something different. You might check your UI system settings. If you look in there, you'll see that you've gotten a new flame weapon. This flame jet is a highly propulsionalized flamethrower that I miniaturized down as much as I can scale with our current technology. Remember that villain who could regenerate? That Nomu, as we're calling it? Yeah, Deku would say, as he narrows his eyebrows, remembering as he looks back at the video file inside of his head in his computer as he sees that All Might was losing. If he hadn't been there and hadn't been able to distract Shigaraki, All Might would have died. Anyway, Hiyashi would then tell him that with using flames, if he's able to attack someone who can regenerate like that, by destroying all the cells, Deku would then realize, by burning and cauterizing the wound, I could take down any of those Nomu monsters if they appear that can regenerate. Good idea, Dad. I should have thought of that. Hiyashi would laugh, saying that's his boy, as he tells Deku to go get it in the sports festival, and show off how great he is to everyone. Hiyashi would be proud of his son as he pats him on the head, saying he did a good job saving the rest of those kids at the UASJ, as Hiyashi would give his son a hug, saying he's so happy he's alright. In fact, Hiyashi would tell Deku he'll see him at the sports festival, with him going himself to the sports festival as a representative for Midoriya Tech, as they're one of the biggest tech companies in the world, so it wouldn't make much sense for them to be a hero company that actually creates technology for multiple companies around the world to not show up to the event. Deku would be shocked as he says he's going to get to have his dad watch him fight. That's awesome. Deku would give a big hug to his dad as he tells him he's going to shine. He's going to show his dad what he can do, as Deku would begin working hard for the sports festival. Instead of physically training, since there's not much he can do with physically training since he has a robotic body, instead Deku would focus on his cybernetics, as he uses his processing power of his brain and focuses on that. Using his superhuman intelligence that he had cultivated by the private school he had gone to for so long, and being raised by Hiyashi, he would increase and use his processing power and practice opening and closing all of the abilities he has and trying to use them as fast as possible on an open air field. As he's been working on moving faster, not having that slowed down, that millisecond of time in between when the robotics were slower than his reaction time was, Deku would be getting better at using them, as using these robotics would become extremely important during fights, since that millisecond of time where he has to react but his body won't move can change the entire course of the battle. Deku would also focus on training the parts of him that were still human, as he focuses on making sure that the rest of him that could and actually could be worked on would be worked on, by working on every muscle that he had left that he could work with. After a short break, it was time to go back to class, with everyone not really being that much excited except for Deku, who already knew about the festival. Aizawa would come in, and this time he wouldn't be wrapped up in bandages, with him not having been damaged by the Nomu as heavily as he had been beforehand. And Aizawa would say hi to everyone in class, telling them that they would be actually participating in a sports festival, the UA Sports Festival, and this would be a great opportunity for them. Wait, seriously? The sports festival, everyone would say? As they would ask the same questions Deku had, and I thought it was really such a great idea. Everyone would be excited for it though, as they're ready to show off what they can do, and fight the other classes to prove that they're the best heroes in the school. All of the first year classes would be fighting against each other, which meant that Deku might actually be able to see Mei again. He hasn't talked to Mei in a while since the USJ incident, and he actually was a bit worried about her. Deku would smile as he thinks about seeing Mei again, but he doesn't really know why. Anyway, as everyone else in class would suddenly decide that they're going to be hyped up for this, for the next few days they would work extra hard on training, as the sports festival would begin. With everyone excited for the first event, everyone would arrive, as Deku would look around the crowd to try and find Mei. Unfortunately, he wouldn't catch sight of her as he had looked for her bubblegum pink hair and extremely beautiful golden eyes. Wait, beautiful? Did I just think that? Suddenly the alarm would go off, as everyone had said 3, 2, 1, go. Immediately Todoroki's ice would begin to cover the field, but Deku would jump into the air, blasting off, causing several students around him to fall to the ground. This would be when he uses his flight, as he begins moving forward at a fast rate. Oh no you don't, Todoroki would say, as Todoroki using his ice would begin to create a barrier, climbing up to the ceiling using a glacier. Todoroki began to run. Deku would say, damn it, as he'll have to use his flamethrower and reveal it early on. He would use his flame propulsion as he used the boosters combined with the flames to create a flame attack, melting the ice as he then burst through it, shattering it with his strength. You're not gonna beat me in a race, Todoroki, he'd say, as he'd fly through the air over the course, taking down the 0-point robots that were in front of him with ease, but leaving 2 behind to slow down the other students. This would be when he'd make it to the rope course and easily fly overhead, with him now easily outpacing the rest of the students with his super speed and flight. As we see now Bakugo is trying to copy the idea, using explosions and bursting forward, he still can't keep up with Deku, as Deku's speed is just continuous, while Bakugo has that short second of time interval, where he needs to get more sweat in order to create nitroglycerin and cause that explosion. We see Deku as he's just about to finish the race, as he comes in first with several minutes before everyone else arrives, with everyone breathing heavily saying that Deku easily had that. A ton of heroes would have been extremely interested in Deku's super fast flight quirk. What a useful ability they'd be thinking. In rescue or in combat, that could be extremely useful if he can use that in different ways as well. Many people will be excited after seeing Deku ace and outblitz almost every student, causing him to shine more than he even had in the original. Deku would be laughing as he doesn't even feel tired, with him looking around trying to see his dad, looking for the Midoriya tech symbol. Anyways, he takes the golden medal itself. This would be when the second event, the cavalry event, would begin, and Deku would start off with the highest points, 1 million. Immediately he could feel all of the bloodlust towards him, as the other students would be staring at him like a delicious pile of chicken wings just waiting to be eaten. Deku would look back at them as he gulps, thinking, he's gonna have to fight all of these guys? Suddenly a hand would pop on his shoulders. He turns around, seeing 2 people, as both of them had touched Deku's shoulders at the same time. Huh? The 2 girls would look at each other to see Mei and Ochako looking at each other, with them now beginning to have a silent fight between them, as they begin to tighten their grip on Deku's shoulder. Deku would be saying? Oh, the 2 would then look back towards Deku and say that they'd be interested in joining his team, with Mei blushing, but just a little. Deku would blush again for some reason, but he wouldn't know why, and Ochako would get a little mad about this, but she would have no idea why either. This would be when Deku would decide they need one more teammate, and that would be when he would eventually discover and see that Tokoyami would also have been left out, inviting him to join the team too, eventually making the original team that he had in the original. Deku would tell his team the plan as everyone's ready. 3, 2, 1, go. Anyhow, thanks Zether for letting me hop on your episode for What If Deku Was Astro Boy. I hope you guys will enjoy watching part 2, but from Zether's perspective. Can't wait to see how he finishes up the sports festival arc. Thanks everyone for coming to watch the video, and I guess I'll pass it off back to Zether. See you guys.